What happens when a Hollywood icon, forged in the ice-cold confidence of James Bond, sits across from a daytime television panel known for sharp opinions, quick laughter, and zero hesitation? What happens when polite smiles crack, when silence becomes louder than applause, and when a single look turns a friendly interview into something people will talk about for years? Before we dive any deeper, make sure you subscribe to Stage View, like this video, and comment right now with your first impression, because this story only gets more intense from here. The studio lights of The View burn brighter than they look on TV. They're not just lights, they're heat. Heat that presses down on everyone sitting at that curved table. Heat that reveals every twitch of the face, every tightening of the jaw. The audience is buzzing, a soft hum of excitement mixed with routine. Another celebrity guest, another cheerful introduction, another segment to glide through before the commercial break. Or so everyone thinks. Daniel Craig steps out from backstage with that familiar walk, measured, controlled, the walk of a man who's been watched for decades and learned how to give nothing away unless he wants to. The applause swells as he appears, echoing off the studio walls. People stand. Phones come out. For a moment, it's all admiration. The Bond theme practically plays in the minds of the audience, even though no music is there. He smiles. It's polite, professional, but it doesn't reach his eyes. Joy Behar leans forward slightly, her cue cards resting on the table, her expression warm but alert. She's done this thousands of times. She knows how to disarm guests, how to provoke them just enough to make good television, how to poke without drawing blood. Or at least, she thinks she does. Daniel takes his seat. The chair swivels just a bit before settling. He adjusts his jacket, crosses one leg over the other. His hands rest calmly in his lap. Still. Too still. The kind of stillness that comes from years of discipline, or from bracing for impact. The introductions roll smoothly. Laughter ripples through the audience. One of the hosts compliments his latest project. Another jokes about how strange it must feel to no longer be James Bond. Daniel nods, chuckles softly, offers a few dry remarks. The crowd laughs on cue. Everything is going exactly as planned. Then Joy turns to him fully. "So, Daniel," she says, her voice light, conversational. "You've played some of the toughest men in cinema. Cold, controlled, sometimes brutal. Do you think that persona has changed you?" It's an innocent question on the surface. A classic talk show prompt. But something in the phrasing hangs in the air, just a second too long. Daniel tilts his head slightly. "Changed me how?" Joy smiles. "Well, there's been a lot of talk about masculinity lately. About aggression. About men in power. Some people feel those kinds of roles glorify a certain emotional distance." The audience murmurs softly. A few nods. A few exchanged glances. Daniel's smile fades, not dramatically, but precisely. Like a light being dimmed rather than switched off. "I play characters," he says. His voice is calm, almost gentle. "I don't live as them." Joy raises an eyebrow. "Of course. But art influences culture, doesn't it?" There it is. The first spark. Daniel inhales slowly. You can see it if you're looking closely. The rise of his chest, the controlled breath of a man choosing his words carefully. He looks out toward the audience for a brief moment, then back at Joy. "Culture influences art too," he replies. "It's not a one-way street." A polite answer. A safe answer. But the tension doesn't ease. It thickens. Joy leans back slightly, folding her arms. "Sure. But when millions of people watch you gun down villains, seduce women, and walk away without looking back, some might say that sends a message." The studio goes quiet. Not silent, never silent, but quiet enough that the hum of the lights feels louder. Somewhere in the audience, someone shifts in their seat. Daniel's jaw tightens. Just a fraction. "I think," he says slowly, "people are capable of understanding fiction." Joy laughs lightly. "You'd be surprised." A ripple of nervous laughter follows, scattered and uncertain. Daniel doesn't laugh. Instead, he leans forward. Just an inch. But the movement is enough to change the energy in the room. "Would I?" he asks. The words aren't loud. They don't need to be. There's something sharp beneath them, something cold and deliberate. The kind of tone that doesn't raise its voice because it doesn't have to. Joy blinks. For the first time, she hesitates. "Well," she says, recovering quickly, "I just mean that public figures have a responsibility." "To what?" Daniel cuts in, still calm, still controlled, but now unmistakably firm. A collective inhale moves through the audience like a wave. Joy's smile tightens. To be aware of the impact they have. Daniel nods slowly. I am aware. Are you? The question lands heavy. One of the co-hosts shifts, opening her mouth as if to jump in, then closing it again. The producer off-camera gestures subtly, a silent plea to steer things back to safe ground. Joy chuckles, but it's strained. Of course I am. That's why we talk about these things. Daniel's eyes don't leave hers. Talking is easy, he says. Listening is harder. Now the room is fully charged. You can feel it through the screen, through the walls, through the years of replays and clips that will follow. This is no longer a friendly chat. This is a standoff. Joy straightens in her chair. Are you saying I'm not listening? I'm saying, Daniel replies, that you seem more interested in assigning meaning than asking questions. A gasp escapes from somewhere in the audience. A few claps break out, quickly dying as people realize they don't know if clapping is appropriate. Joy's expression hardens. I ask questions for a living. And I answer them, Daniel says. But not all questions are neutral. The silence that follows is thick enough to feel. The camera cuts briefly to the other hosts. Wide eyes, tight smiles, hands gripping mugs a little too firmly. Joy opens her mouth, then closes it. For a split second, the mask slips. Annoyance flashes across her face, sharp and unfiltered. So you think I have an agenda? She asks. Daniel pauses. The longest pause yet. He looks down at his hands, then back up. When he speaks, his voice is quieter, but somehow more dangerous. I think everyone does, he says. Including me. The difference is whether we admit it. The audience erupts, half applause, half shocked murmuring. The energy spills over uncontrolled. Joy forces a laugh. Well, that's very honest. Daniel doesn't respond. He simply sits back, his face unreadable, eyes steady. The ice has settled now. Thick. Unforgiving. The host beside Joy finally jumps in, trying to lighten the mood, making a joke about British accents and tough interviews. Laughter follows, grateful, relieved. The tension loosens just enough for the segment to limp forward. But something has already happened. Something irreversible. Joy glances at Daniel again, her smile polite but guarded now. The ease is gone. The playful authority she usually commands feels shaken, challenged. And Daniel, he sits there like a man who has said exactly what he intended to say, and nothing more. The cameras keep rolling. The audience keeps watching. But beneath the surface, everyone knows. This interview has crossed a line. And the coldest part of the exchange is still to come. The laughter fades, but the unease doesn't. It lingers like smoke after a small explosion. Thin, sharp, impossible to ignore. The hosts settle back into their chairs, smiles reset, mugs lifted as props of normalcy. The audience follows along, clapping when prompted, quieting when the red light on the camera blinks. On the surface, the show moves on. Underneath, everything has shifted. Daniel Craig sits still, shoulders relaxed, posture open, but his eyes remain alert. He's not angry. Not visibly. What radiates from him is something colder, control sharpened by experience. This is not his first uncomfortable interview. It's just the first time the tension has refused to stay hidden. Joy Behar glances at her cards, then back at Daniel. The producers have fed her a new line through the earpiece, something safer, something about his career post-Bond. She nods subtly, acknowledging the cue. So, she begins, forcing brightness into her voice, you've said before that leaving Bond behind felt liberating. Daniel tilts his head. In some ways. What ways? She asks quickly, almost too quickly. He considers the question. The pause stretches just long enough to feel deliberate. It allows me to choose roles without expectations attached. Joy smiles. Expectations can be heavy. They can be, Daniel agrees. Especially when other people decide what they mean. There it is again. That edge. Not a blade, but a chill. The audience stirs. A few people lean forward. They're no longer watching a segment. They're watching a chess match. Joy nods, lips pursed. That's fair. But you must understand, with fame comes scrutiny. Daniel meets her gaze. I understand scrutiny. I don't always understand projection. A murmur ripples through the seats. One woman covers her mouth. A man 2 rows back lets out a low whistle before catching himself. Joy laughs, louder this time. Projection? Now you're psychoanalyzing me. Daniel's mouth curves into something that almost resembles a smile. Almost. I wouldn't dare. I'm not qualified. The audience laughs, uncertain whether they're laughing with him or at the situation itself. The co-hosts exchange quick looks, their eyes silently screaming the same thought. This is going off script. Joy taps her pen against the table. Tap, tap, tap. A nervous habit she usually keeps hidden. Well, she says, let's talk about something lighter. Your fans. Daniel relaxes back slightly. What about them? They're passionate, Joy says. Vocal, especially online. Yes, Daniel replies evenly. That's the internet. Joy leans in again. Some of them reacted very strongly when you spoke out about certain issues. Gender equality. Representation. Did that surprise you? Daniel's expression hardens, not with anger, but with resolve. No. Why not? Because people often want you to stay in the box they built for you, he says. And they don't like it when you step out. Joy nods slowly. That's true. But isn't it also fair for audiences to feel disappointed when their heroes change? Daniel's eyes flicker, just for a moment. Heroes who don't change aren't heroes, he says. They're statues. The word hangs there. Statues. Cold. Fixed. Silent. Joy shifts in her seat. Some might argue that audiences don't want lectures from actors. A few scattered claps erupt, louder this time. Daniel notices. Of course he does. He turns his gaze briefly toward the audience. I'm not lecturing, he says. I'm answering questions. He looks back at Joy. There's a difference. The co-host on Joy's right clears her throat. Daniel, what was the most difficult part of walking away from such an iconic role? The interruption is obvious, intentional. A rescue attempt. Daniel accepts it with a nod. Saying goodbye to the people, he says. The crew. The routine. It becomes a family. The room exhales collectively. This is safe. This is familiar. Applause rolls through the studio, genuine and relieved. Joy smiles again, the tension easing just enough to let her breathe. But her eyes never leave Daniel's face. She's listening now, not to his words, but to his rhythm, looking for an opening. And yet, she says smoothly, you don't seem sentimental. Daniel chuckles softly. I am, just privately. Joy raises an eyebrow. You don't think sharing emotion publicly is important? Daniel considers this carefully. The audience waits. I think, he says, there's a difference between being emotional and being performative. A beat. 2 beats. Joy's smile falters. Are you suggesting public emotion isn't genuine? I'm suggesting, Daniel replies, that genuine emotion doesn't require an audience. The words land like ice water. This time, the reaction is immediate. Applause. Loud. Sustained. Someone in the back stands up before sitting down again, embarrassed but energized. Joy laughs again, but it doesn't hide the flash of irritation in her eyes. You're very philosophical today. Daniel shrugs. You asked. Joy glances toward the camera, then back at him. You know, this show is about conversation. Different viewpoints. And I appreciate that, Daniel says. As long as it goes both ways. The temperature drops again. Subtle. Dangerous. Joy leans back, crossing her legs. Do you feel misunderstood by the media? Daniel doesn't answer immediately. He looks out at the audience, at the lights, at the cameras capturing every angle. When he speaks, his voice is quieter. I think, he says, the media sometimes confuses access with entitlement. A hush falls over the studio. Joy's eyes narrow slightly. Entitlement? Yes, Daniel says. The idea that because I'm here, you're owed something personal. A confession. A reaction. Joy stiffens. That's not what we're doing. Daniel tilts his head. Isn't it? The silence is brutal. A producer's voice crackles faintly through an earpiece somewhere. The co-hosts shift again, one of them nervously adjusting her notes. Joy inhales deeply. Daniel, she says, her tone firmer now. With respect, when you come on a show like this, you know what it is. Daniel nods. Yes, he says. A conversation. And conversations involve challenge, Joy replies. They do, Daniel agrees. But challenge doesn't have to mean provocation. Joy opens her mouth to respond, then pauses. The audience is completely still now. No coughing. No shuffling. Just waiting. Are you saying I'm provoking you? She asks. Daniel meets her gaze, unblinking. I'm saying it feels like you want a reaction. And you're not giving me one? Joy presses. Daniel's lips curve slightly. Oh, he says softly. I am. A sharp intake of breath echoes through the room. Joy laughs again, louder, sharper. Well, congratulations. You're very good at this. At what? Daniel asks. At deflecting. Daniel shakes his head slowly. At setting boundaries. Applause erupts again, this time undeniable. It rolls through the studio, claps echoing off the walls. The camera cuts to audience members nodding, whispering, some smiling, some stunned. Joy waits for it to die down. When it does, she looks directly at Daniel, her expression a mix of respect and challenge. You know, she says, not everyone would handle this the way you are. Daniel's voice is calm. I know. Some would get angry. Anger is easy, he replies. Control is harder. Another wave of murmurs. The words sink in, heavy, deliberate. Joy smiles tightly. You really are James Bond. For the first time, Daniel's expression changes. Not to anger, not to humor, but to something more serious. Almost weary. No, he says. I'm not. The way he says it ends the joke before it can land. The co-host jumps in again, voice bright, almost desperate. Let's take a quick break. Applause fills the studio as the music swells. The cameras pull back. The red light clicks off. But the moment doesn't end. As the audience claps, Daniel leans back, exhaling slowly. Joy takes a sip from her mug, her hand trembling just slightly. The hosts exchange quick, hushed words. Producers rush in from the sides, whispering instructions. And in that brief space between segments, when the masks are supposed to drop, something else happens. Joy leans toward Daniel, her voice low, off mic. You don't have to be so guarded, she says. Daniel turns to her, just enough for her to see his face. His voice is just as low. I'm not guarded, he replies. I'm careful. Joy studies him for a moment, searching for something, crack, vulnerability, irritation. She doesn't find it. The music fades. The cameras roll again. And everyone knows the next part of this conversation won't be about movies at all. The applause dies down slower this time, like it's reluctant to let go of the shield it provides. When the clapping finally fades, the studio feels exposed. The air itself seems thinner. The red camera light glows again, unforgiving, capturing every breath, every blink, every micro-expression that can be replayed, dissected, turned into a headline within minutes. Joy straightens her notes. Her voice returns first, bright, professional, practiced. Welcome back, she says, smiling at the camera. We're still here with Daniel Craig. The audience responds politely, but it's different now. This isn't excitement. It's anticipation. Daniel nods once. No smile. Just acknowledgement. Joy turns slightly toward him, angling her body in a way that suggests openness, but her shoulders remain tense. During the break, she begins, we were talking about boundaries, about how public figures navigate them. Daniel's eyes flick briefly to the camera, then back to her. Yes, you said you're careful, Joy continues. Some might interpret that as closed off. Daniel doesn't answer immediately. He shifts in his chair, the leather creaking softly. The sound is amplified in the silence. Careful doesn't mean closed, he says. It means intentional. Joy nods. Intentional about what you share. About what I owe, Daniel replies. The word lands hard. Joy's smile flickers. You don't feel you owe the audience anything? A few heads in the audience tilt. This is the question. The one that divides rooms, comment sections, entire careers. Daniel looks thoughtful, almost gentle. I owe them my work, he says. My honesty in that work. I don't owe them my private self. A man in the front row claps once, then stops, realizing he's alone. A second later, more hands join in. Applause swells, uneven but sincere. Joy waits it out, her expression carefully neutral. But when you come on a show like this, Daniel raises a hand. Not aggressively. Calmly. A simple gesture that somehow stops her mid-sentence. When I come on a show like this, he says, I agree to talk. Not to be interrogated. The audience reacts immediately. A low "oh" ripples through the studio, followed by nervous laughter. Joy's eyebrows lift. Interrogated is a strong word. Daniel lowers his hand. So is entitlement. There it is again. That word. Sharper this time. Less abstract. Joy exhales through her nose, a quick breath she can't quite control. You know, Daniel, I've been doing this a long time. I know, he says. And you're very good at it. The compliment hangs awkwardly, like a gift wrapped in barbed wire. Joy tilts her head. Then why does it feel like you're pushing back so hard? Daniel's gaze doesn't waver. Because pushing back is sometimes the only way to stay standing. A beat. 2 beats. The co-hosts sit frozen, eyes darting between the two like spectators at a tennis match that stopped being polite. Joy folds her hands together. Do you feel attacked right now? Daniel pauses. This time, the pause feels heavier. More personal. I feel, he says carefully, that this conversation stopped being about curiosity and started being about control. The studio reacts as one. Gasps. Murmurs. A sharp intake of breath from someone near the aisle. Joy's face tightens. Control. Yes, Daniel says. Steering the narrative. Framing the answers before they're given. Joy shakes her head, laughing softly. You really think that's what's happening? Daniel leans forward again, elbows resting lightly on his knees. His voice drops, not in volume, but in warmth. I don't think, he says. I feel. That lands differently. The audience senses it. This isn't a debate tactic. This is instinct. Joy looks momentarily caught off guard. She recovers quickly, but the delay is noticeable. Well, she says, feelings can be subjective. So can questions, Daniel replies. A few audience members clap again, louder now, less restrained. The energy is no longer cautious, it's charged. Joy glances briefly toward the co-hosts, then back to Daniel. Let me ask you something directly. Daniel nods. Please. Do you think this show is unfair to you? The room stills. This is it. The direct hit. Daniel doesn't answer right away. He looks out at the audience again, scanning faces. Young, old, eager, uncomfortable. Then he looks back at Joy. I think, he says slowly, this moment is bigger than fairness. Joy frowns slightly. How so? I think it's about how easily conversation turns into confrontation when someone refuses to play along. Joy's eyes narrow. Play along with what? With expectation, Daniel says. With the version of me that exists in headlines, not reality. The co-host on the far end shifts, finally speaking up. Daniel, do you feel the media has misrepresented you? Daniel glances toward her, grateful for the attempt to widen the circle. I think the media simplifies people, he says. It has to. Complexity doesn't fit into sound bites. Joy interjects quickly. But we're giving you time. Space. Daniel turns back to her. Space within a frame. The phrase hangs there, elegant and cutting. Joy's smile disappears entirely now. You're very good with words. Daniel nods. I have to be. Why? Joy asks. Because words are the only defense I'm allowed, he replies. The audience goes quiet again, this time not with shock, but with recognition. There's something raw in that admission, something that slips past the armor. Joy studies him, her expression shifting. For a brief moment, the tension softens. That sounds exhausting. Daniel's shoulders rise and fall in a small shrug. It can be. Silence stretches. This one feels different. Less combative. More human. Joy softens her tone. Do you ever wish you could just show up and be yourself? Daniel's answer is immediate. This is me. A few people nod instinctively, as if they've been waiting for him to say it. Joy presses gently. Even when it makes people uncomfortable? Especially then, Daniel says. The audience reacts again, applause louder now, more unified. This isn't about sides anymore. It's about authenticity. Joy lets the applause roll longer than usual. When it finally fades, she looks at Daniel with something new in her eyes. Not irritation. Not challenge. Curiosity. You know, she says slowly, you're not what I expected. Daniel's lips curve faintly. That seems to be a theme. She smiles despite herself. I thought you'd be colder. Daniel's eyes soften just a fraction. I'm not cold, he says. I'm precise. The word lands gently this time. Joy nods. Fair enough. For the first time since the interview began, the atmosphere truly shifts. The edge dulls. The ice cracks, not shattering but bending. But just as the room begins to breathe again, Joy glances at her final card. The last question. The one the producers debated during the break. Daniel, she says, one last thing. He waits. Do you worry that moments like this make you seem difficult? A few groans ripple through the audience. They know this question. They've seen it used before. Daniel smiles. Really smiles this time. Not wide. Not performative. Honest. I worry, he says, that avoiding moments like this would make me dishonest. Applause erupts instantly, thunderous now. People stand. The sound fills the studio, overwhelming, unstoppable. Joy laughs, shaking her head. Well, she says, raising her hands slightly, I guess we'll have to leave it there. The camera pulls back. The music swells. The segment is over. But no one moves. Daniel stands, buttoning his jacket. Joy stands as well. For a brief second, they face each other without microphones, without cameras dictating their angles. Joy extends her hand. Daniel looks at it. then at her face. He shakes it. The audience cheers. And somewhere beyond the studio walls, beyond the applause and the lights, the fallout has already begun. The applause echoes long after the cameras cut away, a lingering thunder that refuses to fade neatly into silence. Inside the studio, people exhale as if they've been holding their breath for an hour straight. The lights dim slightly. Crew members step forward. Headsets crackle with relieved laughter and hurried instructions. On paper, the segment is over. In reality, it's just beginning. Daniel Craig disappears behind the curtain with a nod to a stagehand, his expression unreadable. The walk is the same one he entered with, steady, controlled. But now there's a weight behind it. Not regret. Not triumph. Something heavier. Something like inevitability. Joy Behar remains on set a moment longer, adjusting her jacket, sipping water, listening to a producer speak urgently just out of frame. Her face is composed, but her eyes betray it. She knows. She felt at the moment the applause split the room in two. This wasn't just television. This was a moment people would rewind, clip, caption, and argue over deep into the night. Backstage, Daniel pauses near his dressing room. A publicist approaches, phone already buzzing in her hand. "It's blowing up," she says carefully. Daniel nods. "Of course it is. Twitter, X, whatever name it's wearing that week, is already on fire." Clips circulate within minutes. The pause before his answers. The way he leaned forward. The line about entitlement. The moment Joy laughed just a second too late. Headlines multiply like sparks. Daniel Craig shuts down the view. Awkward tension as Craig pushes back on Joy Behar. Was this the coldest interview in daytime TV history? Comments flood in faster than anyone can read them. Some cheer him on. Finally, someone setting boundaries. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult her. He stood his ground. Others bristle. Arrogant. Defensive. Too sensitive. Why even go on the show if you can't handle questions? Clips hit TikTok, trimmed down to 15 seconds of pure confrontation, stripped of nuance, looped endlessly. Reaction videos pop up within the hour. Body language experts analyze his crossed legs, his still hands. Former talk show hosts weigh in. Psychologists debate tone versus intent. On one late-night show, a comedian jokes, "Turns out James Bond's deadliest weapon isn't a gun, it's silence." The studio audience footage becomes a character of its own. The gasps, the applause, the way the room shifted when Daniel said he didn't know anyone his private self. Media outlets replay Joy's questions, slowing them down, framing them differently depending on the angle they want to sell. Some defend her, she was doing her job. Others criticize she pushed too far. Joy herself watches the clip later that night, alone, the sound low. She rewinds one moment repeatedly. The second where Daniel says, "I'm not guarded. I'm careful." She exhales. Not angry. Not ashamed. Thoughtful. The next morning, her phone lights up with texts from colleagues, friends, even critics. "Rough one. Powerful TV. Are you okay?" She responds with a simple, "I'm fine." And she is. Mostly. But she knows the truth. Interviews like that don't fade quietly. They leave fingerprints. Daniel, meanwhile, boards a flight. No statement. No tweets. No clarifications. He's been in this world long enough to know when silence speaks louder than spin. Paparazzi shout questions as he moves through the airport. "Daniel, do you regret it? Were you offended? Is there bad blood with Joy Behar?" He doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. Fans analyze that silence too. He's unbothered. He's furious. He's above it. He's calculating. Everyone sees what they want to see. Within days, opinion pieces appear. One calls it a masterclass in calm resistance. Another labels it a missed opportunity for empathy. A third argues it exposed the fault line between celebrity access and personal autonomy. And buried among the noise, a quieter conversation starts to emerge. About how interviews are framed. About how often curiosity slides into provocation. About how audiences confuse availability with ownership. The clip becomes a reference point. Remember the Daniel Craig interview? That moment on The View? When he just didn't play along? Film students dissect it in classes about media dynamics. PR experts cite it in seminars about crisis management. Fans replay it not for the clash, but for the restraint. Weeks later, Joy addresses it briefly on air. Not defensively. Not apologetically. "Sometimes," she says, "conversations get intense. That's not a bad thing. That's honesty." Daniel never comments publicly. And maybe that's the coldest part of all. Not the exchange itself, but the refusal to turn it into a spectacle afterward. No victory lap. No cleanup tour. Just a line drawn, then left alone. In the end, there's no clear winner. Only a moment frozen in time, replayed endlessly, asking the same quiet question every time someone watches it again. Where does conversation end and control begin? And now that question lands with you. What did you see in that exchange? Confidence or defensiveness? Provocation or projection? A host doing her job, or a guest refusing a role he never agreed to play? Tell us what you think in the comments below. We want to hear your take. If you felt the tension, if this story pulled you into the moment, subscribe to Stage View right now for more explosive, cinematic deep dives into the most shocking celebrity confrontations and untold behind-the-scenes drama. Like the video, share it with someone who loves real, unfiltered moments, and stay tuned. Because on Stage View, the spotlight never tells the whole story.